What's up everybody, it's Mr. Gaff here, and today we're going to be talking about one of the earliest and most important battles of the Revolutionary War, the Battle of Bunker Hill. So let's do it, America! So before we get into the battle itself, I want to set the stage for you just a little bit. Don't mind me just setting the stage. So the Battle of Bunker Hill happened on June 17th of 1775. So this is way before even the Declaration of Independence was signed. But it was after the battles of Lexington and Concord, which happened in April of that year. The British Redcoats were camped out in Boston. They'd kind of taken the entire city over. And the colonial regulars, or as they were being formed, were surrounding the city and kind of just building encampments and fortifications and making sure that the British did not try to break out. And the British are kind of sitting there and they're kind of miserable. They had like a miserable winter. They don't have a lot of supplies. Ships are coming in, but they don't like being there. It's not fun for anyone. It became clear to the colonial leaders that the British were going to try and make a push out of Boston. And they heard that they were going to fortify the surrounding hills, whether it be Dorchester Heights or Bunker Hill. Sneaky, sneaky Americans, we decided to do that first. Now, the Battle of Bunker Hill is actually extremely interesting because it emphasizes or shows the importance of terrain. Terrain is the ground in which a battle is fought. Terrain has a massive impact on the outcome of a battle, and in this particular instance, it will show the importance of having the high ground. It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground! It's for my Star Wars fans. Don't sue me, Disney. You have enough money. I got nothing. Right? This shirt, it's my brother's. When the colonials heard that the British were going to try and sneak out and fortify one of the high ground positions, they decided, that's a great idea, well, we're going to do it first. Overnight, they fortified Bunker and Breed's Hill. Fun fact about the Battle of Bunker Hill, most of the fighting actually did not occur on Bunker Hill. Most of the fighting actually occurred on nearby Breed's Hill. But where's this gonna, let's just keep calling it Bunker Hill. But Breed's Hill is where most of the action was. So thanks, Breeds. You'll get your own monument maybe one day. Probably not. Now this was huge because even though they were the much worse trained of the fighting forces and less experienced, they had the supreme or better positioning. They had the high ground. Overnight they were able to dig trenches, encampments, fill up barrels, and make barriers, alright, that would stop bullets and make it just a real pain in the butt for the British to try and break them out of their positions. They were dug in deep, snug as a bug. So upon seeing that the colonials had dug themselves in upon the high ground, the British were like, we're gonna go get them out of there. Now keep in mind, the British regulars absolutely despised the colonials. They thought they were traitors, unworthy of the king's love, because he was so loving, the king. They just really thought that they were kind of scoundrels, and they were gonna root them out. They felt it was their duty to go destroy them. The stage is set. The colonials are positioned on the high ground at Breed's and Bunker Hill. They are fortified. They are in an amazing position. The British, meanwhile, are on the bottom of the hill, and they're just like, we're just gonna walk on up. They thought we're stronger, we're better trained, these people will flee, they're cowards, yada yada yada. As soon as we start marching, they're gonna throw down their guns, and so it was about 2,200 British soldiers versus about 1,000 colonials. There was kind of a big problem for the colonials, and that's that they didn't have a lot of supplies. They did not have enough ammunition. A famous line from this battle is, don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes. Look at your eyes! Alright, on the side you have this white part, and I probably should have googled what it's called. You can't actually see it unless you get really up close to somebody. Go home and do it to somebody in your family. They'll think you're super weird. Do not fire until they are directly on top of you, ready to give you a hug. Right, so super close. Why? Because they did not have enough bullets to waste. They were actually not well trained anyway, so they were terrible shots, and they couldn't. Eventually they were going to run out of ammunition. So what happens? The much stronger British force decides, we going up that hill, we're going to get them out of that hill. They advance once, are pushed back. Nice job, team. But they're not to be deterred, alright? They advance again, and they're pushed back again. So the British have now made 2 advancements, and during this time, they are suffering heavy losses, right? Because they're just marching up a hill to somebody staring down being like, hey, what's up? What are they doing? They made it pretty easy on the colonials, but this just shows the overconfidence of the British army at that time. They thought that the second they start marching up the hill and show their redcoats, that these soldiers were just going to run away. And that's not what happened. They fought back and they fought hard. They were very feisty. So eventually the colonials did retreat. They ran out of ammunition. The British numbers were just a little bit too overwhelming. Now there were heavy losses on both sides. And throughout the entire Revolutionary War, this was one of the bloodiest battles. Almost half of the British soldiers were either killed or wounded, and the colonials lost about 400 men. British end up taking the hill, or winning the battle. Now here's the thing. They took the hill, so they got the area, they got the field, whatever. Technically, if you do that, you win. But at what cost? That's a question they had to ask themselves after. And the answer was a lot. And it actually shook the British pretty hard. The British won the battle. But after the battle, or during the battle, news of Bunker Hill spread about the heroic men who fought on top of the hill and repelled the British twice before they were eventually forced to retreat and overwhelmed. Really kind of pumped the Americans up. It showed them that they could fight against this worldly superpower that is the British Empire. Yeah, man, we could do this! So it gave the Americans a ton of confidence, which was awesome. Even though they lost the battle, they won the mental aspect of it. The British, on the other hand, they suffered all these losses, and they finally realized that this war wasn't going to be as quick and simple as they thought. So that's the Battle of Bunker Hill. The British won the battle. They ended up taking the hill, but they suffered a ton of casualties. Americans were dug in on the high ground, and even though they were worse trained and heavily outnumbered, they fought back, and they fought back hard. I'll see you guys next time. Peace! Who did that? I didn't do that. That wasn't me. That was a weird... Some guy just snuck in and did a dance move. It wasn't me.